At the request of Yamunacharya's disciples, Ramanujacharya went to Sri Ranga and assumed the administration of the Sri Ranga temple and the mutt. Religious routine flowed smoothly. The reforms introduced by Ramanujacharya augmented the revenue of the temple and reduced the income of the old officials. They were simmering with rage and hatred. They did not even hesitate to attempt to poison the Acharya.
Undu madahadittan Odada dolvaliyan Nandagopalan marumagale Nappennai Gandan kamadan kurali Kadediravai.
The Parupattedar tried to serve poisoned food at the ritual collection of alms. At the request of his disciples, Ramanujacharya gave up collection of alms from that day. Acharya Mahapurna had a daughter, Attulai by name. She was being harassed in her husband's house. She had to drudge like a slave, and yet her mother-in-law showed not an iota of kindness. The young woman once came to the mutt and shed tears before the Acharya. The Acharya was deeply moved. The mother-in-law used to taunt the helpless woman, saying,
"Are you not the daughter of the man who was excommunicated?"
Dasharati once happened to hear her and reported to the Guru. Ramanujacharya understood the wretchedness of his disciple.
The revered Mahapurna, the great Guru, is the greatest of Sri Vaishnavas. He once had to perform the obsequies of an untouchable called Maranambi, who was utterly destitute and had not a soul to care for him. The Guru himself performed the obsequies and, as a consequence, had to endure excommunication. Dasharati, you go to her house and work there and be a source of support to the harassed girl.
Thus instructed Sri Ramanujacharya. The mother-in-law was scared when she saw Dasharati toiling like their own bondsman. Wisdom now dawned on her. The family was happy.
One day, having rendered services to Sri Ranganatha, Ramanujacharya was on his way back to the mutt. He saw a group of children playing a game of divine worship. The Acharya went into a trance. The children had made a chariot using such things as tin foil, a sieve with wide holes, and twigs. A broken idol was seated in the chariot. The children had offered flowers without fragrance which had fallen by the roadside, and as Naivedya to the Lord, they had piled up a few pebbles. A broken tile piece served as halagarthi. Prasada, or the offering to the Lord, was distributed after the ceremonial worship. As Aralapadu is offered in the temple after the worship, the kids offered pebbles to the Acharya. The Acharya was in raptures. He became a child among the children. He spread his kashaya vastra and received the prasadam.
What is this, revered sir? They are after all mere kids. You are a great Muni. Should you play like them?
You read the Prabandhas from end to end, but you have not grasped its true import. Those who dance about crying aloud, Govinda, Narayana, are not mad. True, these kids are playing a game, but it is the game of divine worship. We are undoubtedly in the presence of God. Why should we not feel a sense of fulfillment like these kids?
In this manner, the Acharya enlightened his disciples about the nature of worship. To Sri Ramanujacharya, Lord Vishnu was immanent in the universe. the Acharya decided to go to Tirupati and have darshan of Lord Srinivasa. He reached the holy place. He offered worship to the Almighty and stayed for a day at the foot of the hills. The hills are another form of Adishesha, and so the Acharya did not wish to touch them with his feet. He stayed in the town below and recited the holy name of the Lord. Sri Shailapurna, who was on the hills, heard about it. He raced to where the Acharya was climbing the hill on his knees and requested him to come to the temple and have a darshan of Lord Srinivasa. The Acharya went to the temple and gave a discourse on Vedanta Sangraha and earned the grace of the Lord. A moving episode occurred at the time of Sri Ramanujacharya's visit to Tirupati. A young man, Varadarya by name, poorest among the poor, fell at the feet of Acharya and begged to be accepted as his disciple. The Acharya consented. As Sri Ramanujacharya was walking along an alley where poor people lived, he came upon Varadarya's dilapidated dwelling. Varadarya's wife was a lovely woman. She looked out of the window to have a darshan of the great Guru. The Acharya noticed this. She was yearning to come out, touch the feet of the Acharya and receive his blessing. But that was a dream, never to be realized. The reason was that she had a torn sari which could not even decently cover her body. The Acharya realized her plight and his heart melted. He threw the upper piece of cloth he was wearing. She wore it, came out humbly, and falling at his feet, covered them with her tears. At her request, the Acharya entered a humble dwelling. She was in ecstasy, but shrunk with embarrassment. As there was not even a grain of rice at home to offer anything to the Acharya.
Gracious sire, rest for a while. There is a rich man next door called Yagnesha. He is enamored of my beauty and has sought my company. Harsh poverty is roasting us alive, but I have protected my chastity. This body, a bag of flesh and bones, will be reduced to ashes one day or the other. Let his fire of lust burn it now. I shall tell him about my resolve and bring some money from him. Let me extend at least humble hospitality to you and fulfill my life.
Varadarya had gone out on his round, seeking alms, and was not yet back. Yagnesha's eyes were now open. He said, "Forgive me, sister," and followed her to her house. He touched the Acharya's feet and pleaded to be forgiven. He begged him to accept him as a disciple. A master wrestler, Dhanurdasa, had loved and married a beauty. The couple came to Sri Ranga to offer service to the Lord. Dhanurdasa feared that his lovely wife's eyes would wither. So he spread an umbrella over her head and devoutly followed her so that the sun might not touch her. The sight brought a smile to the Acharya's lips.
My dear man, why are you holding the umbrella over her?
There are no eyes in the world to match these eyes, and I am holding the umbrella so that they may not wither.
If I show you eyes far lovelier than these, will you give up this infatuation?
I will certainly give up this infatuation and become a slave of the eyes you show.
The Acharya took Dhanurdasa to the temple. The Nanda Deepa, or the ever-bright light, had illuminated the sanctum sanctorum. The decoration with flowers was spellbinding. The air was charged with the fragrance of incense. conch and gong sounded sweetly. Devotees were singing melodiously.
Pariyanahi vanda avudanudal genda Amararkariya adippiran Arangattamalan muhatte Kariyavai pude varande milinde செவ்வரியோடி நீண்ட அப்பெரியவாய கண்கள் என்னை பேதமை செய்தனவே.
O Lord, grant that Dhanurdasa may have a sight of your entrancing eyes. Let him have sight of your eyes, and so bless him.
At once, the Lord graciously permitted a sight of his enchanting eyes. In a moment, Dhanurdasa felt as if he had a rebirth. He felt he was immersed in an ocean of indescribable bliss and, unable to speak, fell at the master's feet. He became the most devoted disciple of the Acharya, and the Acharya also was very affectionate towards him. Often, after he had his bath in the river, he used to lean on Dhanurdasa's shoulder on his way back. Some disciples could not reconcile themselves to this practice. They used to say to one another, "If he so wishes, let him hold this untouchable's hand when he goes to the river. But how can he touch him after his holy bath?" The Acharya came to know of this. He decided upon a plan and called Dasharathi.
When all these disciples are fast asleep, tear off a bit from the washed cloth which they have left to dry.
The next morning, the disciples discovered that the clothes of every one of them were torn. They started blaming one another loudly and were at each other's throats. The Acharya called all of them and said,
Calm down, all of you. I have to make inquiries of Dhanurdasa. I'll ask him to stay back tonight. I want all of you to go to his house, and when his wife is fast asleep, remove all her jewels and bring them.
So he commanded. The disciples imagined that something dreadful was in for Dhanurdasa and were delighted. That night, when they entered Dhanurdasa's house, they found his wife asleep. They approached her stealthily and removed whatever jewels they could lay hands upon and fled. They placed jewels before the Guru. Ramanuja asked Dhanurdasa to go home and then said to his disciples,
Now, go again to Dhanurdasa's house, carefully listen to the conversation between husband and wife. Come back and tell me.
The disciples went to Dhanurdasa's house. They sat under the window and listened to the couple's conversation, and they were all ears.
Kanakaji, I don't see some of the jewels you used to wear. Where are they?
Perhaps the disciples feared that I am too attached to my dresses and jewels. Some of the Acharya's disciples broke into the house last night to test me. They removed whatever jewels they could lay their hands upon, one after another. I allowed them, but they thought I had woken up, and so they ran away. Poor fellows. Their troubles were not adequately rewarded.
But why did you not stop them and give them the rest of the jewels?
The disciples reported to the Guru what had happened. Ramanuja said with a smile,
Do you understand now? Kanakangi was born in a low caste, but dress and jewels did not tempt her. But you have studied the Vedas. You kicked up a huge row just because your old clothes were torn.
The disciples hung their heads in shame.
Ramanuja wished to keep his promise to Yamunacharya and prepare Vyasa Sutras. But he needed one source book, the Bodhayana Sutra. It was available only in the palace library in Kashmir. The Acharya set out on foot with his disciples. He visited several holy places like Dwaraka, Mathura, Brindavana, Pushkara, Ayodhya, Prayaga, Naimisharanya, Badari, and Saligrama on the way. The journey to Kashmir took some 6 to 8 years. The Acharya graced the palace and met the king. He told him the object of his visit. The king asked the officer in charge of the library to bring the work immediately and submit it to the Acharya. But the scholars of the court were apprehensive. They said to the king, "Your Highness, it is a very precious work. Once it is lost, it cannot be replaced. The Acharya can peruse the work here and write his work later." The king looked meaningfully at the Acharya.
How can the study of this much be completed in one day?
So the Acharya was worried. The study of the first half of the tome took a whole day. He was pondering over what he was to do. The work had to be returned, but he had not been able to touch the second half. Then Kuresha spoke to him.
"Venerable sir, there is no reason for worry. I studied the second half of the works while you were reading the first half, and I read the first half when you were resting. Now I have the entire work by heart."
Kuresha was an Ekasandigrahi. He could grasp a work at the very first reading. The Acharya embraced with tears of joy the disciple who had rendered such inestimable service. The king too was happy that the problem had found such a satisfactory solution. He presented to the Acharya the gold idol of Lord Hayagriva, which was by the side of goddess Sharada.
May your great mission be achieved by the blessings of protecting deity of Kashmir.
The king prostrated before the Acharya. With the assistance of Kuresha, the Acharya wrote a commentary on Vyasa Sutra and became famous as the Bhashyakara. Thereafter, he composed 3 works, the Vedanta Sara, the Vedanta Deepa, and the Vedanta Sangraha. These works propound the Sadhya Sadhana. In order to explain these works, he composed the Sri Bhashya. He explained at length the power and greatness of unwavering devotion to the lotus feet of Sri Narayana. He also composed Nitya Grantha, setting out the manner of worshipping the Lord. His Gadyatraya expounds the Prapati concept in even simpler language.
Kulotunga Chola, the ruler of the Chola dynasty, hated the very name of Vishnu, and so the ever-growing luster of Ramanujacharya made him furious. The evil thought occurred to him that he should murder the Sri Vaishnava pontiff and flaunt the glory of the Shaiva religion. He ordered his soldiers to arrest the Acharya at once and bring him to the palace. The soldiers surrounded the mutt. The Acharya should immediately come out of the mutt. Such is the edict of the king, they announced. The Acharya was not at the mutt at that time. He had gone to the river for his bath. Kuresha, Dasharati, and the other disciples were engaged in the routine of the day. Kuresha was not daunted by what had happened. Kuresha assembled the disciples and said to Dasharati,
"Dasharati, set out at once for the Hoysala kingdom. I shall ensure that the Acharya reaches there safely. Take courage."
Kuresha decided to rescue the Acharya. He bowed in his mind to the holy feet of the Acharya and then put on the Acharya's clothes. He made sure the holy marks on his body were clear and in place.
You are the very reflection of great Guru. No one can have the slightest suspicion.
Stuff the vessel with my clothes. Report to our Guru all that happened here.
Do not worry. We shall take care of everything.
Srimate Ramanujaya Namaha. I shall leave now. How's this? All this while, you were a pillar of strength for me. Why has your face lost its luster?
I dread to think what will happen if the truth is discovered in the royal court.
The wise have said, the Guru is Parabrahma himself, and to me, it is a literal truth. The Acharya, holiest of the holy, bestowed education on me. He showed us the path of realizing God. He wished to fulfill the desire of Sri Yamunacharya and named our sons after Vyasa and Parashara and blessed them. Is it not our duty to ensure that no harm befalls our most venerable master? To save him is to save the Sri Vaishnava religion. Do not lose heart. The Lord is with us.
With these words, Kuresha, now dressed in the religious robes, emerged from the mutt. Mahapurna also accompanied him. Yelling with arrogance, the soldiers surrounded them and took them to the king's presence. The Acharya read the letter that a junior disciple brought. He opened it, praising within himself Kuresha's devotion to his Guru and his readiness to make any sacrifice. Devastating news waited him. Kuresha's disguise was discovered. The beastly Chola ruler subjected the two to indescribable torture and ordered that the two should be blinded. Kuresha did not want his eyes, which had beheld the Acharya, should be touched by the wicked soldiers. So he plucked them out with his own hand. Unable to bear the agony, Mahapurna ascended to heaven. The Acharya swooned with grief. Tears streamed from his eyes. His voice choked with grief as he tried to speak. Following the suggestion in the letter, the Acharya left for the Hoysala kingdom with his disciples.
The sun that set in the Chola kingdom rose in the Hoysala kingdom. When he entered Karnataka, the touch of his feet sanctified the earth. He followed the course of the sacred Kaveri, and passing through Ramanathapura, he reached Saligrama, where he stayed for a few days. Saligrama was then the stronghold of Jainas. A man, Vatuganambi by name, became his disciple. From him, Ramanujacharya learnt the state of affairs in the Hoysala kingdom, that the ruler, Bittideva, was a devout person, and the queen Shantala Devi was a dancer of rare skill. The princess was possessed and was in a sad plight. He also learnt about the political happenings. Vatuganambi requested the Acharya to visit the capital Tondanur, and he complied. The royal couple had heard that the Acharya had freed the princess of Kanchi from the clutches of an evil spirit, and so they were happy that he had come to their capital. They brought the Acharya to the palace with royal honors. They touched his feet and begged him to relieve the princess' suffering. The moment the great Yeti sprinkled holy water on the princess, the evil spirit fled. Words could not describe the joy of the royal couple when they saw the princess rise with silvery laughter. The three prostrated before the Acharya. Bittideva became a disciple of the Acharya. He converted to the Sri Vaishnava religion. Ramanujacharya bestowed a new name on him, Vishnuvardhana, and he became celebrated by this name. The followers of the Jaina religion were envious of the reputation of the Acharya, which was spreading by leaps and bounds. That King Bittideva embraced the Sri Vaishnava religion was like adding fuel to the fire. They were determined to humiliate the Acharya in a debate and to win the king back to their fold. It was decided that disputations would be held in the divine presence of Narasimha Swami. The Acharya was seated behind a curtain at the main entrance, and the Jain champions were before it. The Acharya assumed his original form of Adishesha with 1,000 tongues and was ready for the debate. 1,000 persons flung 1,000 questions and he answered the 1,000 questions with 1,000 tongues simultaneously. The adversaries were easily worsted in the debate. The Acharya magnanimously forgave them and accepted them as his disciples. Similarly, the Acharya silenced the Jains in Shravanabelagola and inducted into his fold those who sought protection. At one time, the Acharya was perturbed because the stock of white clay which he used for the holy signs on his forehead was diminishing. One night, Lord Narayan appeared to him and said,
Great Yeti, do not worry. In the Yadavachala close by, there is plenty of white clay. Follow the Tulasi path. You will come upon a host of Champaka trees. To the north of this cluster, there is a big Tulasi tree. I dwell in an anthill under the tree. Let the world see me, and then install me, and build a temple for me.
As the day dawned, he told his disciples about the vision. Together, they went to Yadavadri. The Acharya desired Vishnuvardhana to join them. Using abundance of milk, the anthill was made to melt away. A light, not of this earth, was seen. At an auspicious hour, under the star Punarvasu, on Thursday, the 14th day of the brighter half of the moon, in the month of Pushya of the year Bahudanya, the Acharya had a darshan of Lord Narayana in his lemur form, which enchanted the entire world. Shedding tears of joy in raptures beyond description, his voice choking with ecstasy, he cried, saw him who is of the color of the ocean, and he is mine. With the help of the untouchable cowherds who were grazing cattle, he made the anthill melt and brought the idol in great pomp into the town. The joyous shouts of the devotees, the sounds of kettle drums and other auspicious musical instruments reached the skies. The Acharya himself gave a ritual bath in milk to the deity and offered ritualistic worship for 3 days. The Acharya had a sacred bath in the Veda Pushkarini, shed the white clothes which he had been wearing, and wore the Kashaya Vastra which was spread on the Paridhana Shila. The lowest born who helped retrieve the principal idol from the anthill were honored. But the Acharya was troubled because there was no Utsava Murti, the idol to be worshipped at celebrations. He became immersed in meditation and surrendered himself at the feet of the Lord. Cheluva Narayana appeared to him once again in a dream.
O great sage, my Utsava Murti, Ramapriya, is in the palace of the Sultan of Delhi. Go at once and bring him.
The Acharya told the king about this.
Sir, before you set out for Delhi, Lord Chennakeshava has to be installed in the temple at Belur. There are only 3 days for the ceremony.
The Acharya travelled to Belur and took stock of what had happened. With the sculptor Jakanacharya to assist him, he went around looking at the images. He bestowed high praise on Jakanachari whose skill had made the various postures displayed by the Queen Shantala blossom in stone.
Jakkana, where is the idol of Chennakeshava?
I was about to tell you, Gurudeva. My son Dankana says that the idol I have sculpted is not worthy of worship. He says there is water in the navel region and the frog has settled there.
On what basis?
The sandal pasted on the other part of the idol has dried, but it has remained wet around the navel.
Carefully remove the layer on the navel. Let us see.
No sooner was the stone covering raised than the water began to ooze, and a frog hopped out. Everyone was amazed. Acharya praised Dankana. Jakkana was crestfallen, but the Acharya comforted him, saying, "A father rejoices to be surpassed by his son," and cheered him up. Vishnuvardhana and Shantala Devi were unhappy because there was not enough time to make a new idol. But the Acharya said to them, "Do not worry, there is time until my return from Delhi." Sri Ramanujacharya set out with a limited retinue. He sent word with his disciples to the Sultan about his visit. The Sultan welcomed him with great pomp and respect and treated him with due hospitality.
Respected sir, may I enquire about the purpose of your visit?
I seek a Utsavamurti, Ramapriya. I understand that the idol is in your palace. I have come here to take Ramapriya with me.
I shall show you all the idols I brought away at the time of my military expedition. If the idol you seek is among them, by all means take it away. Pray, come with me. Here in this chamber are the idols. You can take your own time to view them.
No, none of these is our Ramapriya. Show me any other idols you may have.
No, there are no other idols.
No, Sultan. My Ramapriya is here. I have no doubt about it.
Well then, call your God. If you are a true devotee, let him come to you.
Hardly able to speak because he was overwhelmed by emotions, the Acharya cried out to his dear Lord,
Come, my treasure, the enchanting Ramapriya. Come, run up to me, my dearest Ramapriya. Come.
In the chamber of the princess, there was a flash of lightning. The sublime figure of Ramapriya, a veritable treasure of loveliness, ran up to the Acharya with his tiny bells ringing and climbed up to his knees. Dressed in rich yellow clothes, his face beautified by a musk mark on his forehead, Ramapriya was enthralling in his loveliness. Overcome by his emotions, the Acharya embraced him. The Sultan now realized that there was divine element in the Acharya. He prostrated to the Acharya. The Acharya prepared to leave. The princess, who was passionately in love with Ramapriya and used to engage in loving dialogues with him, was now heartbroken. Her world seemed to collapse around her. She declared that she could not bear to be separated from Ramapriya even for a moment. She mounted a horse and followed him. The Sultan was bewildered. He consulted his ministers and decided to send his daughter with the Acharya. He placed his request before the Acharya, who agreed. The Sultan placed his daughter and Ramapriya in a palanquin and took leave of them. He sent his son with a troop of soldiers as bodyguards. Going to his father's instructions, the prince followed the great sage up to Yadavachala. The palanquin was lowered, and the prince went up to it to help his sister out. But his beloved sister had already merged with Ramapriya. The Acharya and all others were astonished. At the Acharya's suggestion, the prince had an idol of his sister made. Ramanuja Acharya installed it between the lotus feet of Lord Narayana with all religious rites.
The story of Ramapriya up to this time is a glorious one. In the Treta Yuga, Lord Brahma presented this idol to Sri Ramachandra. Then Usha, Sri Ramachandra's son, got possession of it. When his daughter Kanakalamalini married a prince of the dynasty, it was gifted to her as her dowry. In the Dwapara Yuga, Sri Krishna crowned it with the Vairamudi and decorated it. In the course of his pilgrimage, Balarama came to Melukote. He was struck by the resemblance this idol had to the Tirunarayana idol. He brought the idol and installed it here. Muslims had carried it to Delhi. Now, our treasure, this Ramapriya, is back.
Vishnuvardhana himself led the construction work of a new town. It was called Melukote. When the beautiful temple was ready, the great installation ceremony was held amidst great rejoicing and in accordance with the prescribed rituals. In course of time, Brahmins and members of other castes settled in the new town and devoted themselves to the worship of the Lord. Sri Ramanuja Acharya felicitated the Dalits who helped in this great cause. He allowed them to participate in the 3-day Brahmotsava at Tirunarayanapura. They were allowed to have a holy bath and enter the temple so that they could have a glimpse of the Lord from close proximity. Everyone praised the Acharya for his sympathetic outlook towards the downtrodden Dalits. When Sri Ramanuja Acharya learnt that the Chola king had passed away, he decided to return to Sri Ranga. The mentor and the disciples were reunited after many years. Bowing to his master's direction, Kuresha composed Varadarajastava and prayed to the god, and his sight was restored. He met the Acharya and requested that his sight be withdrawn so that he might not look upon things worldly. The sage made his submission to the Lord. He ever obeys the wishes of his devotees. He decided to receive the service of the Acharya in the world hereafter and ordained that he be called to his immediate presence to serve in close proximity.
O Yati Raja, in 4 days, on Saturday, the 10th day of the brighter half of the moon, in the month of Magha, in the afternoon, be pleased to arrive in the world hereafter to a magnificent welcome.
The Acharya was thrilled when he heard the divine voice. He began to look forward to his journey to Sri Vaikuntha. He called all the Sri Vaishnavas to his presence and discoursed for 3 days and nights. The disciples wondered why the master, who had not taught these principles all these days, gave these uninterrupted discourses.
Sri Ranganatha has been pleased to summon me to his presence. He accepts me tomorrow afternoon. You should all kindly bid me a hearty farewell.
When the Acharya revealed the divine wish in these words, the disciples pleaded with him, Who will be our refuge hereafter? The Acharya had an image made resembling himself. He embraced it and charged it with his own superhuman power.
Let this image receive the devotion you have shown to me and render your service.
Thereafter, images of the Acharya were installed in every Vishnu Kshetra to be worshipped by devotees. Of these, the images in Sri Ranga, Sri Perumbudur and Tirunarayanapura were installed by the Acharya himself. The Acharya's inner eye saw the reassuring palm of Sri Ranganatha. His inner ear heard the reassuring affectionate call. The Acharya's face grew radiant with satisfaction. He rested his head on the chest of Govinda and his feet on the knees of Andrapurna and lay down. His eyes were fixed on the sandals of Mahapurna and his mind rested in the lotus feet of Yamunacharya. The recitation of Bhriguvalli, the Anandavalli and the sacred Prabandhas and the melody of musical instruments all combined to create a blissful act. It was as if the world of the gods had descended to the earth. The holiest of holy moments arrived. His soul burst through the Brahmarandra and soared speedily. Sri Ramanujacharya had returned to the world hereafter and once again assumed the form of Adishesha.
The life of Sri Ramanujacharya, who proclaimed that Vishnu pervades all Vedanta, was a holy light. He shed luster on the earth for as long as 120 years. For 60 years, Sri Ranga was his sacred seat. The centers he sanctified by his presence during the rest of his life are chiefly Kanchi, Sri Perumbudur, Melukote and some other places. This sacred master Ramanujacharya guided without distinctions of caste, sex and community all persons to the redeeming path of total surrender. He came to be known as the Prasanna Yatiraja, or the gracious king of ascetics, because he bestowed on all living beings self-confidence, zest for life, and spotless devotion. Sri Ramanujacharya was the foremost philosopher who sounded the trumpet of the universal man 1,000 years ago. The system of philosophy of which Ramanuja was the pioneer later became famous as Vishishtadvaita Darshana. The pioneers of this system were Sri Nathamuni, Sri Yamuna Muni and Sri Ramanuja Muni. This school of philosophy declares difference between Jivatman and Paramatman on one hand, and the difference between matter and Jivatman, Paramatman, on the other hand. All these three entities are real in this school. This school holds the duality text and the unity texts of the Shruti equally valid and works out harmony through the Ghataka Shrutis or coordinative texts and solves all apparent contradictions. All scriptural texts are taken in the primary sense alone, as the Upanishads declare that Paramatman is the internal self in all entities, both sentient and non-sentient. All other entities are the body of Paramatman. This body-soul relationship is a spiritual analogy and not physiological. The principle which supports, controls and uses for itself is the Atman, and that entity which is invariably supported, ruled over and used is the body. This body-soul relationship between the universe and Paramatman is the unique doctrine of this school. So when viewed from this point of view, Paramatman is the one and non-second reality characterized by the orders of the sentient and the non-sentient. There is a difference between the body and the Atman. All names signify in the primary sense Paramatman alone. So oneness of the ultimate reality and differences between Paramatman, Jivatman and matter are affirmed. As Paramatman is the internal self, all terms signify Paramatman characterized by the Jivatman, characterized by matter. This is the essential nature of this school. This school has opened the gateways of moksha to all people without any distinction of caste, creed or color, through the means of self-surrender or prapati at the holy feet of the Lord.